have a question I wanted to explore with you about embracing suffering. It seems like most of my life what I've done is run from it and found lots of ways to cover it up, and now it seems like that has clearly not worked. And I don't want suffering to be to be something that I'm going to be fighting and battling with. It doesn't seem to be the right thing to do. So I don't know exactly how to embrace it, to know things to do to kind of aim towards that, more accepting. And what I've noticed is that when I see it differently, there seems to be a compassion that kind of comes out. So if I could aim toward that.
So when you speak of suffering, are you speaking of the content of the mind stream, a particular story?
Yes, it seems my while I don't feel a why me kind of thing about what I'm going through, I do feel suffering. My mind and body are suffering, and so I would like to be able to embrace that suffering in order to kind of soothe that, I don't want I don't want to suffer like that. So if I can figure out a way, or if I can find paths or ways to transform it, I guess is what I'm looking to do. If I can do that, if that's at all possible, that kind of thing. And I think the suffering is more, it's emotional, certainly, because I'm feeling all of that, but also it's physical too.
Yeah. So, often over the years, I would speak of, or I would make a distinction between the inevitable suffering of being a human being as opposed to the needless suffering, which is born out of this following the mind stream, listening to the mind stream, obsessing in our relationship with the mind stream, and believing a story that turns out to be fictional. So, what you're going through at this point, a cancer journey, what your body is going through, what your human beingness is going through. It's quite challenging at times, to say the least, to one degree or another. And there's going to be inevitably feelings, sensations, emotions that are the stuff of inevitable human suffering. Often the stuff of sickness, old age, dying. So I'm so frequently speaking of the import of bringing as much unconditional love and compassion and respect and forgiveness to our own selves, especially during those human times that are so very challenging. You speak of compassion. There's so many opportunities when we listen to the mind stream, listen to that story referent to whoever we're maybe taking ourselves to be. To when we notice that, to allow the mind stream to be the very reminder of the possibility of unconditional compassion here and now. So there's chock full of reminders in that, or opportunities as we're listening to and engaged with. The habit, yes, for human beings is to resist the experience of suffering. So the very seeing of that resistance is also that reminder that there's a possibility of bringing a simple acceptance to this moment, to a reminder too of the possibility of letting go here and now and starting afresh. That reset button is always available. And Robert, my guess is that you've acquired so much, so much. Well, I know you've acquired so much wisdom over the course of your lifetime. So in part, it's remembering to make that wisdom practical to your particular circumstance and condition. So acceptance, letting go, remembering, making wisdom practical, allowing the mind stream's content to be reminders of unconditional love and compassion. And it's helpful too to just allow that resistance to be just as it is. Sometimes that's as much acceptance as can be in this moment, just allowing that natural tendency to resist to just be as it is and simply seeing that. Rather than feel I have to do something about this immediately.
Yeah. There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
It's an immediacy kind of thing that's crept in.
So maybe that's a good starting place, is allow what is to simply be simply as it is, without the need for it to be different.
Yes.
To
Slow
whatever.
down.
I'm sorry.
Slow down a little bit.
So slow down. So a good starting place is simply our breathing and allowing that to become more full, deeper, slower. And there are times too that we seem to have to bear what feels unbearable. And we do bear the unbearable throughout our lives from time to time. Any of this useful for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. I
So,
get wrapped up. I get all kind of wrapped up in it. You know, there's so much, as you can imagine, there's people talking to me and there's so much going on that I think that's it. Step back and slow down, find a little more peace in myself. And it seems very, very noisy right now around me.
yeah.
I got doctors and family and friends and all kinds of stuff. Pretty much.
So sometimes in the midst of that, we're just kind of trapped being amidst people who are all well-meaning and all
Yes.
chattering away. And perhaps when you get home and alone, just to allow your body to relax as much as it can and see. I'm not going to say this precisely, but and I find this tremendously helpful with what I'm going through these days, is just allow as much stillness and quiet. There's such peace found in that stillness. And there is that place of stillness already, always. It's what helps sometimes is to imagine you're sitting on the rocking chair or throne of witnessing. And over here are the thoughts and emotions and sensations, and just to see if you can gain greater distance, awareness, from the contents, thoughts, emotions, sensations that are appearing. And to note as you let the contents of awareness just be, to have your attention gently, naturally shift onto itself, onto the stillness, onto the quiet, and see if you can rest in this, your own true nature, actually.
Thank you.
I'm with you, brother. I am. As much as my own cancer journey was as similar to yours, I know that territory, and to some extent, and its challenges and the fears and uncertainties and just the drag of having to engage with doctors and hospitals and tests and intrusive this and intrusive that. It's challenging.
Yes, it is.
And really give your permission not to have to do it in an heroic fashion all of the time.
Yeah, I have that feeling too. I want to be strong for everybody, and
So allow yourself to be strong for everybody sometimes, and also allow yourself to be utterly vulnerable and utterly human in the midst of it all.
yes.
What's really helpful too is as much as you can know what it is you need in any given moment and be humble in your asking for that, whatever that may be, whatever that need or wish may be. For surely your beloveds in your world want to fulfill as much of those wishes and needs and desires as they can. And also, you'll be able to fulfill some of those as well by knowing what they are. So it's so multidimensional, and it's a learning to navigate a territory that we haven't heretofore been familiar with, possibly from the vantage point of a caregiver, but not from the vantage point of the one with a diagnosis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm seeing a beautiful lotus, so I'm imagining you as a beautiful lotus right now.
Well, thank you. I'm an aging lotus.
A beautiful aging lotus.
Yes, I'll be 80 this summer. Your phrase, bearing the unbearable, is very apt right now. I think the more difficult thing than my own frailty, which I have osteoporosis and have had several spinal fractures over the last years, and I think I have a new one. So I feel like the disintegrating woman. And I'm trying to come to terms with that. But even more, I'm trying to come to terms with the inevitable, probably loss of my son, who was diagnosed with advanced.
Nikki, it's difficult for me to hear you, so perhaps you could say that again.
Did you hear the part about my osteoporosis?
Yes.
Okay. And that I possibly have a new fracture and am dealing with pain.
Yes.
But more than that, I've been dealing with, I guess, what you would call anticipatory grief, because my son was diagnosed with advanced cirrhosis of the liver. He's 60, and he was diagnosed 2 years ago and has been through amazing trials that he has survived. But there's no assurance that he's going to get a transplant. And so every when I don't hear from him for a few days, I start to go into panic, thinking I won't be hearing from him again. I'm in the Southwest. He's in the Northwest. And
could you say the last sentence again?
I am in the Southwest.
Southwest.
And he is in the Northwest.
Yes.
And I've been unable to travel, and he's been unable to travel. So it's been actually several years since I've seen him. So I guess I really appreciated the words that you said to Robert, and of course can apply much of that to my situation.
Nikki, are you getting the care and support that you need where you are?
I am very lucky to have a very loving husband who's taking care of me.
Good. You know, so truly, I feel an immense compassion for you, both in the challenges of the body and your profound concerns about the welfare of your son. And that's so much on your plate. And so many of us who are no longer spring chickens, we're really facing the letting go of everybody and everything. And as these bodies age and we become more frail and we come closer to our own passing, we can see the immense invitation, demand even of this big letting go of everything and everyone. It doesn't mean to not be profoundly caring and profoundly concerned, but in this big way, we are preparing for our own departure. And to the extent that you can bring your attention back to that as a primary focus, this letting go, this anticipatory grief that you mention is so connected to the anticipation of our own demise as a embodied human being. So practically speaking, it's realizing that you have a son who's 60 years old and you have just about zero control about what happens to him. It's out of your hands. And in the same way, it's really the same way with everything. Everything turns out to be profoundly out of our hands.
Isn't that true?
It is true. And there's something very liberating and relieving in that realization. Everything was always out of our hands, regardless of how it appeared. So perhaps to whatever degree these words are appropriate for you, to you, is perhaps nurture a bit the faith you have in the unseen hands in which all has been always. Cultivate greater faith in the unseen hands in which all and everything has been in always.
That's what I'm doing here. And that's what I've been trying recently to a high degree. It's almost felt a race, whether he was going to go first or I was. I have autonomic nervous system difficulties underlying all this, which I won't go into, but your words have been very, very helpful and have just reaffirmed what I've been feeling in terms of the letting go. And I thank you very much for taking my question.
You're most welcome. Thank you for speaking with me.
You're welcome.
You are a beautiful old lotus.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.